Today, we're going to go on an incredible journey. We're diving into the epic story of Indian painting, a story that stretches back over 10,000 years, from the walls of ancient caves all the way to the amazing art forms that are still alive and kicking today. So, how on earth do you even begin to tell a story that long? 10,000 years? Well, you start right at the beginning, and we're going to trace how this art has changed and evolved in some pretty mind blowing ways. I mean, just look at this. This slide says it all, doesn't it? On the left, you've got one of the earliest pieces of Indian art we know of, a super simple figure. And on the right, a stunningly complex, detailed classical painting. That's the evolution. That's the journey we're about to take. Okay, let's do this. We're kicking things off right at the dawn of art, with India's very first artists. These were people who used the rocks and caves around them as their first canvas. We are going way, way back. I'm talking about the Old Stone Age. Think about it. Before there were cities, before writing, early humans in India were already artists. They were leaving behind this incredible visual diary of their lives right on the walls of their homes. Now, these first artists, they had two main techniques. You had petroglyphs, which is basically where they carved or chipped away at the rock itself, and then you had pictographs, where they actually made paints from things in nature and painted on the walls. So carving versus painting, the two foundations of art right from the very start. And get this wasn't just happening in one little spot. This map shows that these prehistoric art sites are literally scattered all across the Indian subcontinent. It was this universal human urge to create, to leave a mark, to tell a story. So this table highlights a few of the really key sites. But if there's one name you need to remember, the absolute crown jewel of Indian prehistoric art, it's Bhimbetka in Madhya Pradesh. Bhimbetka is just astounding. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it has over 400 painted rock shelters. The art here isn't from just one time period. It's a chronicle in stone, layered over thousands of years. It shows everything from hunting to dancing to just everyday community life. And their favorite colors, red and white, you can still see them vividly on the walls today. And these images perfectly capture their world. On the one hand, you have the raw reality of survival, these scenes of people hunting. But on the other hand, you see the beginnings of community, of culture, with these incredible figures dancing, all linked together. It's their struggles and their celebrations, painted for us to see. All right, let's jump forward in time. We're going from these really personal cave paintings to storytelling on a truly epic scale. We're entering the magnificent age of mural paintings in ancient India. So you might be wondering, how did they make these huge artworks that have lasted for centuries? It wasn't just paint on a drywall. They used this really smart method called the fresco technique. And here's the genius part. They painted on the plaster while it was still wet. This meant the color chemically bonded with the wall, becoming a permanent part of it. It's basically art as architecture. So cool. And the undisputed masterpiece of this entire tradition, Ajanta. The caves here aren't just important. They're considered the fountainhead, the source from which so much of classical Indian painting and even art across Asia drew its inspiration. And here, in Cave 1, you can see why. These are some of the most famous figures in all of Indian art. Just look at the incredible sense of peace and grace in the Bodhisattva Padmapani on the left. Now compare that to the power, the regal presence of Vajrapani on the right. This is masterful stuff, telling a story just through emotion and posture. So, what are these paintings actually about? Well, for the most part, they're telling the Jataka tales, which are stories about the Buddha's many previous lives. And they don't do it in little square frames. Nope. The whole story just flows across the walls in one continuous, cinematic narrative. It's like an ancient graphic novel on a massive scale. Okay, so we've seen the massive public murals. Now we're going to shift our focus dramatically, resuming way in, moving from the giant wall to the tiny page and entering the detailed, intimate world of miniature paintings. Here's an easy way to think about it. Murals were like giant public billboards, telling these big religious stories for everyone to see. Miniatures, though, they were like a private photo album, made for kings and queens, capturing these small, personal moments of court life, hunting, and portraits in stunning detail. And the most famous of all the miniature schools? It's gotta be the Mughal school. What's so fascinating is that its story is tied directly to the emperors themselves. It kicked off when Humayun brought Persian artists to India.
Then it exploded under Akbar, who mashed up Persian and Indian styles. It hit its absolute peak, its golden age, with Jahangir, who loved realism. And then it declined when Aurangzeb wasn't a fan, and all the artists had to find work elsewhere.
Mughal paintings have such a distinct vibe. They're this beautiful mix of styles, but what really makes them stand out is their focus on realism, especially the portraits. The colors are often a bit more subtle, the lines are incredibly fine and precise, and here's a fun fact. A single painting was often a team project. You'd have one master artist for faces, another for animals, another for the background. But art in India wasn't just for gods in caves or for kings in their courts. What about everybody else? Well, that brings us to our final section, where we celebrate the vibrant, living traditions of folk art. This is art made by the people, for the people.
All right, let's do a quick fire tour. First up, we're in Bihar with Madhubani art. You know it the second you see it. It's got these bold, bright colors, these super intricate geometric patterns, and that signature double-line border. It's just so full of life.
From there, let's head east to Odisha for Patachitra. The name actually tells you what it is. Pata means cloth, and chitra means picture. These are incredible scroll paintings on cloth, and they were used by storytellers to narrate epic tales, usually about Lord Jagannath. Now for a totally different feel, check out the beautiful minimalist style of Warli art from Maharashtra. The Warli tribe uses this really simple visual language, just circles, triangles, and squares, to create these incredibly dynamic scenes that capture the rhythm of their daily lives. And we'll finish our tour with the absolute opulence of Tanjore painting from Tamil Nadu. What makes this style so iconic is that it's actually 3D. Artists build up parts of the painting with a special paste and then cover it with real gold foil. It makes the paintings glitter and seem like they're glowing from the inside. So, from the very first human marks on a cave wall to the grand murals, the delicate miniatures, and the folk art that's still being painted today, this 10,000-year story shows one thing. Art always finds a canvas. And that makes you think, doesn't it? Our canvases today are digital screens. So what stories will we choose to paint for the future?